Leach. I'm a Navy judge advocate. I'm here in Millington, Tennessee, which is just north of Memphis. We have a mostly administrative base here where Navy Personnel Command, Navy Recruit Command, and a couple of other commands are here. Um, let's see. So as a Navy judge advocate, we're primarily attorneys for the Navy. We have three statutory missions. The first one is military justice, where we have our own court system with trial and defense and our own judges, and we do trials very similar to how they're done out in town. We also give command advice, so that's advising military commanders on law of the sea, law of armed conflicts, administrative matters, and things like that. And then we do legal assistance, and that's taking care of the legal needs of the service members, their families, and retirees. Legal assistance is my primary job here in Millington. I do a lot of wills for retirees. I do advice on divorces, people who think they're getting scammed from cars, like that sort of thing. So it's a broad amount of things you could be doing in the Navy judge, as a Navy judge advocate. It's kind of it's a lot more than I expected. I remember when I was thinking about joining the JAG Corps, it was like, oh, okay, there's trial, and then I get to advise military commanders, and those are two very big things, and there's so much more under it. So working through the questions, some opportunities. We actually have a really great internship program, and you guys aren't conveniently located for internships. There's not a lot of Navy in Tennessee. We're a bit far away, so it's not something you'd be able to do during the school year unless you did a summer somewhere else. But so it's not a great opportunity. But if you are wanting to do a summer internship, we offer them all over the world. You would have to, like, I have a friend that did one in Naples, and she flew to Naples, did 10 weeks there working with the legal community, and had a great time. I did a summer internship in DC, and it was fantastic. I highly recommend, if you have the ability to do an internship, that if you want to join the JAG Corps, then that's the way to go. The internships are open for 2Ls and above, so that just means your 1L summer. So you can't do your 1L year, which you're too busy for an internship anyway that year. And to apply, it's jag.navy.mil/careers. And that's where everything, all of our stuff's on the JAG Corps website. The due dates and everything change pretty much. So just checking our careers website is the main way to get up-to-date information. Now, since we have someone here, do you have any questions about the JAG Corps or anything that you are looking to get out of this?
Definitely, I do. You mentioned the internship just now. So is it available the summer after 1L year, or just starting summer after 2L year?
Summer after 1L year. So yeah, as soon as you finish one year of law school, you can do your internship. And I think that's more of a law school limitation than it is a Navy one.
Okay, so, that makes sense. And then I guess, when is that application then? Is it already over for this coming summer?
It is already over for this one. It was due on the 25th. Now, I don't know how hard that line is, so it is definitely worth reaching out if you've missed it and you want to apply. Depending on where you're trying to go, like if you want to go to DC, that one's fairly competitive to get, but most other places, what they do is they say, hey, someone wants to go to Fort Worth, and so they call the JAGs in Fort Worth and say, can you support someone? And they make room for an intern. So I wouldn't say the deadline was a hard no for you if it's something that you're interested in.
Some of the other things is what is compensation like that summer? Is it paid or is it unpaid?
So we have a internship that's paid for 2Ls. So when you're rising 3L, that one is paid. I don't have a clue what it is. They didn't have paid ones when I went through, and then it changes pretty frequently. With the state of the way the government works is they go, how much money can we get? And they go, we can get this much. And it's like, okay, well, we'll divide that out. So I don't know what it pays at all, but I'm sure they would be like if you reach out to Code 61, that's our administrative department. They're not going to hide the ball on you. They'll tell you it's this much. And that's a great internship. They do, if you're looking to join the JAG Corps, that internship does its own sessions panel. So they take from the interns pool only, and they select a few people to join right from there, as opposed to joining the greater pool of all applicants.
That is actually really interesting and good to know. Um, Also, when you mentioned the different areas, military justice, command advice, and legal assistance, is there, I know the Navy also has civilian attorneys, which is a little different. But are those three areas something where you just go in and you kind of get experience in all of them, or do you get to specialize early on or at all?
So definitely get time to specialize and you get experience in all of them. We have a program, it's called the First Tour Judge Advocate Program, and it's 2 years and it's what you start out with. So like the path to becoming a JAG is you go to officer development school. That's 5 weeks where you learn how to be a naval officer. So nothing to do with the JAG Corps or being an attorney at all. It's just how to wear a uniform, how to salute, all the basics. And then you do 10 weeks of Navy Justice School, which is our version of law school where it's applying things. It's like, okay, well, state law, that doesn't apply here. Let's do Navy stuff. Let's learn how to do a will. Let's learn how we do court martials and so, and then you go to your first duty station. And in your duty station, you'll do a rotation system. So you do 6 months in legal assistance where you're providing, advice to whoever needs it, doing wills, doing powers of attorney. Like I said, just today I've done divorce and someone who thinks they're getting ripped off for a car, and I will later. So you get a little bit of that. And then you spend 6 months advising a military commander, usually like an installation commander, someone who runs a Navy base on ethics and searches and seizures and just making sure that they're following the rules. So those are the first 6 months. And then you spend a year in either trial or defense. I spent a year in defense. I was on 3 court martials and 30 administrative separation boards. That's our own kind of lower level when we want to fire someone from the Navy, but we still owe them due process. So we have administrative separation boards to separate them. And then after you finish your 2 years, that's when you kind of get to figure out, well, what do I want to do? Do I want to continue doing trial? Do I want to, go out and work on a ship? Do I want to be on a carrier? Do I want to do legal assistance? And you can get a taste of that. So you do a 2-year tour anywhere in the world doing anything that we do. And then later on, you have the ability to specialize. Like during your 3rd tour, if you're deciding you really want to do trial, you can join our military justice trial program. So that's where we specialize, and you get it's when you're pretty much doubling down, saying, okay, I want to be a trial attorney on a path to becoming a judge, and they have different benchmarks for that. There's no need to specialize. You can hop around. I know many JAGs who have done just about everything, advising Navy SEALs, and then next they're doing administrative work, and then they're on the Hill doing legislative work. And so every 2 years when you're up for orders, it's pretty much an open slate. You go, well, where would I like to live and what kind of work would I like to do? So it's kind of nice having the flexibility.
What is deployment like for the JAG Corps? Like, do you guys get deployed, and is it a choice, or et cetera, et cetera?
So there are deployments available, but it is a choice. I've never heard of a JAG them saying, hey, you're going to Afghanistan, or we're going to force you to be on this ship that's going out to sea. There's not a whole lot of jobs that have like operational experience where you're going to go somewhere. So they're competitive. So it's not, if you want that experience, that's something that you would like to do, then they are out there. You can be on a carrier or with an amphibious squadron, someone that goes out to sea for long periods of time. You can, go to Guantanamo Bay. You can, Afghanistan if it's available, like depending on what's going on in the world. But there are things that are there, but not anything that's forced.
For the internship, you mentioned you can pretty much reach out and go anywhere. What your base near Memphis is that? Do you take on interns, or is
Absolutely.
it
So
just
Navy Personnel Command is right now has internships open. So they're the administrative side of the Navy. All the administrative actions, if we would need to fire someone, if someone did something wrong, if pay stuff, they have a legal office there. And so I know they're accepting internship or interns. And then if we had, there's at least one slot there. And if we needed more, Recruit Command can have one, and even my office could support an intern. So there's always availability.
um I was wondering, so compared to the other service branches, they all have their JAG corps.
Mhm.
What do you think for you makes the Navy stand out as why someone should join versus the others?
So this is always interesting because I grew up in a Navy family. My dad and my grandpa were both in the Navy. I grew up on Navy bases. So I never had there was never a drive. I'm like, I want to join the Army. So the Navy was just always the path. I like our duty stations, other than where I am and a few other ones. We're on the water. So we have nice duty stations. You can get stationed in Naples, Rota, Spain. Where's our Singapore, Sicily, Japan, Okinawa. All these great places around the world. And so it's kind of looking at yourself on how do you want to live and what sort of life? Like sea service life is kind of what I always wanted. And we do very focused, like we have those 3 statutory missions. Other branches, the Army and the Air Force specifically, they have a smaller civilian lawyer population. So they do a greater number of things like military contract reviews and legal assistance and things that we don't really do. We do a lot more actual operational law. The difference between, like, to say, the Navy and the Army is the Navy has ships that move throughout the world. So we are always practicing operational law. We drive ships right by Iran. Someone has to advise on that. The Army's fairly stationary. So like their JAGs don't get a lot of operational law experience unless they're deploying. So it's just a little focus on that. If you're looking to do like military justice, we all do basically the same thing. So you can pick your uniform and look at duty stations. The Army gets to go to Germany, whereas we don't really. So if you want to live in Germany, Army Air Force is probably better. Marine Corps is, and I'd say the Coast Guard, they're their own separate beasts. I would say if you want to be a Marine, you probably know you want to be a Marine already.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I totally get it.
uh,
I've heard that for the Marines, they are soldiers first, as in like they are infantrymen for
yes,
however long,
they
which is wild.
yeah,
Cool,
it's definitely
but maybe
different.
not
They
for me.
they go through all the training to be, Marines, and they have the ability to command normal Marines in combat. It is extremely rare for a JAG to do. I have never heard it actually happen, but it is at least possible, and they like to talk about it a lot. Coast Guard's the same way. Coast Guard, you can switch billets. You don't have to be a JAG. You can take a non-legal billet and be a marine safety inspector for some time. So it's a little bit, and you can't knock Coast Guard's duty stations. They are all in beautiful spots around the world. So there's no real good answer. One of the advice, or a piece of advice I would have if you're looking to join the Navy, is you will get asked that question, why you want to join the Navy. And having some answer is important. It's like, oh, I'm applying everywhere. That's fine. We don't want to restrict you. Apply to the Army, apply to the Air Force, and take whichever. But have a good answer on why you want to join the Navy. I want to join the Navy because I like Navy ships, or what something that shows that you have thought about the answer and you're not, just blanket applying everywhere.
um, yeah, I think that is one very fantastic advice, and I think that for me, I do have a really good reason. Like you said, uh, this is the first I had heard that operational law is way more common in the Navy, because actually I'm not super interested in litigation or trial. If I went civilian, I don't think I would do litigation possibly a day in my life.
Mhm.
So, so advising commanders and that aspect is definitely more interesting to me. Now, I've never been in a military courtroom. It could be a different process. I could love it. Taking criminal law this semester, and I'm liking it more than I thought I would. So,
No, and I agree. I was the same way. I had no interest in military justice, and I spent a year in defense, and I really liked the advocacy, like the actual, like, here's somebody who's in trouble, and they're relying on me to help them. It's like they messed up, and that's fine. And I enjoyed that way more than I expected. And so that's why it's nice that with the first tour program, you get that rotation. And so even if you don't want to, well, we're going to make you do it for a little while, and then you can go, okay, never again, and you'll never be forced to it. We kind of prize our like trial attorney billets. So they're not going to say, well, you have to be a trial attorney, because, you know, it's a hard job and we want to make sure that we're putting people in them who really enjoy it.
No, that's good to know, because I do think that there's a potential I could like it. And so there is that nice aspect of trying it out before committing. Um, w- with uh, with officer training, is it officer candidate school, or is it a
Officer
little?
Development School.
Okay. And that's in Annapolis, correct?
It's in Newport, Rhode Island.
Newport,
Yeah.
Rhode Island. Okay, sorry.
No,
So that is that very similar to what other officers would go through? Is that the same thing?
so I think it depends. I know it is not similar at all to what line officers go through. Like people who, officer candidate school, where like the normal Navy goes to is much more strict, much more rigorous. Officer development school, we are an asset to the Navy. So you go with surgeons, nurses, doctors, lawyers, and chaplains. So these are people that the Navy they don't want to break us. So it's not very strenuous physically. It's mostly just adapting to the Navy lifestyle, getting up early, making sure you're standing at attention, everything's squared away. Physically, though, most of the people I went to, we would finish for the day and they'd go to the gym or go for a run because they're like, I don't want to gain weight here. Like it wasn't super strenuous. If you can meet the minimum guidelines for a physical fitness in the Navy, then you're not going to have an issue. Other than that, it was, I rather enjoyed it. We, everyone living together, going through all the same stuff. Some of my best friends are the ones that I went through officer development school with.
Um, I have an idea of what the minimum physical requirements are, like run a mile, be within a certain height and weight. But that's not, I guess so you're saying it's not very strenuous. It's not the same thing. Because that is very good to know.
And I mean, it's a 1.5 mile run and being able to do, 20 to 30 push-ups. And then now we just added in planks instead of sit-ups. So doing planks in it. You can show up with none and, you'll do push-ups every morning when you get there and you will improve over the time. But also it's a really long process to become a JAG. So you have plenty of time. If you applied, like, are you a 1L, you're saying?
Yes, I am in my second semester 1L.
Okay. So you would be able to apply in September. And, if you got selected, then you would find out in December. You would probably get commissioned into the Navy sometime the next summer. And then you would have 2 years, well, 1 year, I guess, until the bar happened. And then 6 or 7 months after the bar, you would be able to join. So you have a lot of time once you've committed to be like, okay, it's not like we're going to have you running 1.5 miles next week. It's, okay, 2 years at least for you until, you're going to be in uniform. So nothing really.
Yeah. I enjoy working out. I think that I worked as a lifeguard at Keesler Air Force Base.
Okay.
I'm from there, like Gulfport, Biloxi. And so that was a great experience to just in off time, being able to go to the gyms, being able to swim, being able to do those things. And so that's
about like this job is since we prioritize physical fitness, you're able to go to the gym. I mean, in my job, 1:30 every day, I'm like, oh, time to go to the gym. Then I, come back. And so we definitely have that ability. We do have JAGs down in Gulfport too, and there would be an internship down there. Yeah.
Yeah, that is good. It's definitely not a place where I, want to live forever, but if needed, maybe I need to go home or something like that, having a duty station there is very convenient.
Well, even for the internship, it makes it so that you could live at home as opposed to, either driving 3 hours to come here or finding a hotel for 10 weeks or whatever it is you would figure out.
Good point.
Being close to somewhere you could live for free is convenient.
What would you say that your everyday life is like? Obviously, you said you do lots of different things, but what is, what's the word? Quality of life?
So that was the main reason I wanted to join the JAG Corps, is I wanted the normal life. I have 2 daughters, I'm married, and it it's fantastic. Like, depending on your job, some jobs are busy. You know, if you're advising a operational commander at one of the fleets, you might be working long hours. If something comes up in the middle of the night, you've got to be there to, give them advice. Most of our jobs aren't like that, though. 8 to 4. I work 8 to 4 with a fair amount of flexibility through the day, and no complaints at all. My friend's down in Meridian, Mississippi. He's the JAG for the base down there. He works quite a bit more, but it's a busier base. But he's still off at 5, and when he goes home, we might get some nighttime phone calls. We had some stuff come up a few days ago where the base commander was calling me at midnight, being like, "Hey JAG, I don't know what's going on. Let's talk this through." But that's pretty rare. Other jobs, though, can be very busy, and you'll know that going in. If you take a job at the Pentagon, it's going to be a busy 2 years. So with the flexibility of duty stations, you kind of know what you're getting into, and you can call the person in there and figure it out. No one's getting blindsided by jobs unless it's a brand new job, and you'll be the first one to figure it out. But that's pretty rare.
The first tour where you're doing lots of different things, is something like the Pentagon one that you might have as part of that process, or is that typically more experienced, older, second, third
No,
type?
absolutely. So I worked and I did my first tour in DC, so at Washington Navy Yard. And for the different rotations, like I have a friend who did legal assistance at the Pentagon. And then for command services, you could work for the Vice Chief of Naval Operations and working on his staff. So, there's a captain who's his actual legal advisor, and then there would be, lieutenant commander, and then probably a couple lieutenants. Then you get an intern over there, and so you get some experience working with flag officers. I worked for the Chief of Naval Personnel, which is on a smaller base, but still being on a 3-star admiral staff, figuring out ethics advice, and right. We're doing some very high visibility stuff. At the time, we were working like transgender rules. And so that was really interesting coming into law school, being like, oh, I'm actually like helping the Navy figure out what we're going to do about it. And so it's really nice working on like a flag staff and figuring, like seeing what big Navy's doing, and then also having a, some experience with like a installation commanding officer. So DC is a good one because you don't get that experience other places. There's not a Pentagon everywhere. But the difference with DC as opposed to like Norfolk or San Diego or Hawaii, not a lot of ships in DC. So if you're in Norfolk, you would get an experience of being able to go underway on one of the carriers or on an amphib or on a submarine. So different experiences for different duty stations. And so you get to hopefully hop around and see it all, or not. Some people definitely homestead, where it's, I have friends who on her 3rd tour in San Diego right now. No, that's not a terrible place to live, but it's all very San Diego and no experience of other things.
So you theoretically wouldn't have to move that much.
So
like I'm not saying I want to or not, but I'm curious about the opportunities. Like, it's not every 2 years you're moving, or is it, what is that in between, or what is that?
So you're going to change jobs every 2 to 3 years. Depending on where you are, you may have the ability to stay in one spot. With 2, maybe 3 tours in a row, like if with DC and Norfolk being so close together, you could really close to do an entire career just hopping back and forth between the 2 of them, and no one would complain about it. It starts to look bad on you if you spend too much time in one spot, because then it seems like you're not willing to take duty stations. We're all a team, and so there's some bad places to live and there's some great places to live. And if you're taking up one of the spots constantly in the better places, it starts to make you look bad. But it's nothing that's that big of a deal. And once you promote, I think they said something like 70% of our like 05 and like 06, so commander and captain jobs are in DC. So as you progress in your career, you're going to spend more and more time in DC anyway.
And speaking about progressing and rising up through the ranks, how does that process work in the Navy? I think I saw something where you commission at a lieutenant junior grade.
Yeah, so
off.
we could just change that now. So now you'll commission, as lieutenant junior grade, and you'll spend 1 year as that, and then you'll be a lieutenant. And then it gets more competitive. So you spend an average of 6 years, 5 to 6 years as a lieutenant before you make lieutenant commander. It's a fairly high selection rate for lieutenant commander, depending on our retention numbers. So the ability to progress is, how many spots there are open. The problem with being a commissioned officer is it's all set by Congress. So we have certain numbers. We are only allowed to have so many like lieutenant commanders and lieutenants. So depending on how many openings there are and what's available, that's how many, what percentage actually promotes. So then it's competitive. You have to do well in your job and network and do your best to get promoted.
Is promotion by rank linked to an increase in salary? Is it all based off that, or are there specified times where you might get a raise or you might get
So both. The Navy pay scale, if you can Google it, and it's all out there, but it doesn't make a lot of sense because there's other things. So when you commission, so like let's say you applied this fall and you got selected in the winter and then you commission next summer. That's the start of your time in the Navy. So, but that goes for pay. So like I commissioned 5 years ago. So I'm paid as a lieutenant with 5 years in the service. When I hit 6 years, I'll get a pay raise. And you get pay raises every 2 years just for your time in. Those are kind of standard of living or cost of living raises. And then we get the actual cost of living raise every January that, the president sets some percentage and all military gets a raise there. And then most of your raise is when you promote. And those are fairly significant. Like when you look at your like lieutenant junior grade pay over like when you start to a lieutenant who's been in for 4 or 5 years, it's practically doubled. So it looks small and then it goes up. And then we get what's called basic allowance for housing. And that is dependent on where you live. So in DC, I think it was around an extra $3,000 a month.
wow.
Whereas here in Tennessee, it's 2,000. And I know in other places, it might be 1,200 because it's based on what it actually costs to get a place. So and that part's tax-free. And that's one of the kind of hidden benefits of working like for the military is you have your actual pay and that's what's taxed, but you're getting sometimes a significant amount more. And so, you might be actually making $110,000 a year, but your taxes show like 65. So little benefit on that.
No, that definitely is a benefit. And also thank you for that answer because that was super helpful. I don't have any family really in the military or anything. So even with my time, I was paid, I believe, on the GS, maybe. And just kind of learning all of that is like learning another language.
No, absolutely. And because if you look at the pay scale, it doesn't look competitive for when you start. You're like,
right.
I don't know, that doesn't like how are people living in DC on that? And so you have to look at the basic housing allowance, and for that you have to figure out the zip code of where you're going to live. It is complicated. Yeah.
But yes, it adds a benefit though, because if you're going into a private firm, it may be a higher number, but then you're taking into account every other thing you have to pay, healthcare, gym membership, because we were talking about that. And so it is a real benefit. I think that
was the main thing. I went to school in DC, and then my first tour was in DC, and so I think I was making around like 100 to 110,000, and some of my firm friends were making like 200, but they were also paying $3,000 a month for student loans, whereas we have the public service loan forgiveness. So like after 10 years of public service, if it still exists, then they'll get taken away, and then so all the other benefits that went along with being in the Navy mixed with quality of life, I think I was doing much better than the people who are junior associates at firms just getting ground down and hating every minute, whereas I was having a great time.
Where did you go to law school?
I went to George Washington University.
Oh, wow. That was actually one of my choices. We were talking about it this morning. I got in there and was considering it.
I liked it just mostly for the DC. Like it was so interesting the amount of things that we were able to do. And then, but an internship is pretty important to trying to get into the JAG Corps, because the main thing about an internship is getting a letter of recommendation from whom you're working for. So if you get a captain saying, this is a great person, that's really going to let you stand out. A lot of our applicants are very competitive. They go to very nice schools like Vanderbilt, and they have very good grades. And so it's hard to be like, okay, well, if everyone has good grades and everyone, goes to nice schools, what's going to make them stand out? And that's where the internship is really valuable.
When we were talking about the summer program and not the 1L, but the 2L 1 year, is that one is that like a binding one where if you get it, you apply, I would apply in September and then you get accepted that next summer. So then you're officially in the Navy at that point, and that's what you've got your service commitment.
Is the internship binding on getting a job? Like you have to apply? What was?
No, like so if the 1L summer one is just, my understanding is it's just like any other internship, whether at a firm or anything. So what would I be applying for in September for
That's
next
actually
year?
to join the JAG Corps.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you would,
for you, that would be your first opportunity to apply. We do it twice a year. The application opens in September and closes in, I think, early November. And that you're applying for the JAG Corps. The way we do it, since you're getting a commission, which has to be done through Congress, we kind of pre-select the people we want. And so you're applying for the JAG Corps for a professional recommendation. That's us saying, here's the 10 people we would like, to join the Navy. And then Big Navy looks at it and they go, okay, that's fine. And then it goes through the commissioning process, eventually goes through Congress, and you get signed and you're a commissioned officer. So it's a big deal because you can't just quit being a commissioned officer. So if you, like, I joined my 2L year and I was commissioned the summer before 3L. If a firm was like, I want to give you $1 million to work for me, I wouldn't have been able to do that, because I'm locked into 4 years of active service once you get your commission. So it's good because you then have a job and you don't have to worry about it, and you can just go through law school without knowing, no matter what you do, as long as you pass, you're locked in and the Navy's stuck with you. And that takes a lot of stress off of tests. But then you're locked in. And so if you change your mind, well, that's too bad.
Okay. So then it would be reaching out to someone this summer to get that letter of recommendation for next, and then hopefully you get accepted that next year. But let's say if I didn't get an internship this summer with the Navy, could I do that, next summer, and then it just pushes the process back?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and you could still apply this year. Like if you decide right now, you're like, I think I really want to join the Navy and that's what I want to do. This fall, you would apply. You would just have your letter of recommendations from, teachers and whoever you can get them from. And if you get selected, then you're in. You don't have an internship, and that's fine. And you can apply again in next spring. And it's the same thing. You'll have 4 times to apply before you graduate, and you can hit it. And it looks good if you keep trying. I mean, it's a competitive process, and so if someone has tried 3 times, we're like, wow, this person really wants to join the Navy. That looks great. So persistence is, rewarded. But yeah, so you could apply these 2 years, go into the summer. If you hadn't already been selected, do the internship, and then you would have more application material, because then you'd have people you'd worked with, and a letter of recommendation from a captain that knows you can get it put in. And even for this summer, I don't actually know what's around you guys. If there's an Air Force base or an Army base, it's not bad to intern with other branches if they're not around. I mean, you're still getting a letter from a military judge advocate saying this is a high quality person and I would hire them in a minute. And the Navy is going to look at one from an Air Force colonel the same as they would with the Navy one. Be like, oh, wow, this person's done the work, and it's been deemed that they would be a good add to the JAG Corps. So it's not a bad thing if you're not able to get near a Navy base this summer.
I think I think we have an Air Force and a Army base. I think Fort Campbell is about an hour, and then Arnold might be the one, and that one's in Tullahoma, which is about an hour. So
So things are a little bit more convenient, but still not super convenient yet.
yeah, not super close. Nashville is not as close, but
I didn't
okay.
realize how big Tennessee was when we moved here. We were Googling all these Tennessee stuff,
Yeah.
and it was all on the Nashville side. And we're like, well, what's on this side? And like Graceland. And it's like,
Yeah.
I guess.
Me No, that's exactly it. Like being in Memphis, you're actually closer to Mississippi, you're closer to Arkansas, and that sort of thing. Because I moved to Chattanooga right after graduation from Mississippi State. And yeah, it threw me completely. I was like, oh yeah, Memphis. And someone was like, yeah, from Chattanooga, Memphis is 6 hours. So it was
Yeah,
definitely,
it's a big state.
definitely different. What with your having kids, you mentioned that you have kids. Um, what is that like for them, moving and that sort of thing? You hear
So
stories, but
yeah, I can definitely tell it's going to be hard for my daughter. She's 4, and we have friends. We live on base, and they move around, and she's sad that they're moving, and it's like, oh, she's not gonna take this very well. I grew up in a Navy family, so like we moved every couple years, and it made my sister and I really close because we were the friends that we were going to have everywhere we went. Um, so it can definitely be tough, and I see a lot of people deciding once they start to have a family that maybe it's time to get out. You do 10 years in the Navy and then try something different, maybe move on to the reserves. But it's kind of something you have to figure out with your family. Other people do it their whole career, and their kids love it, and they know every 3 years they get to live somewhere cool. Your kids will have possibly lived in Italy and Japan and Hawaii and all these great places, and then you know so that's a good experience for them. But there are some definite negatives having to move around. And when I grew up, there wasn't Facebook, so at least I have friends, and I'm like, man, I wonder what that kid is doing. Whereas if with Facebook, I'd probably know. And so it'll definitely a different life than it used to be, but it can be hard.
well, thank you. I mean, I think I'm finally out of questions. So
All right.
I
So
appreciate that.
we're hosting a panel next week on Wednesday,
Okay.
and it it'll be a pretty good panel, I think, for just the amount of people. We've had people who have been carrier JAGs and strike group JAGs and on submarines, and some trial people, and then someone who's brand new. So different experiences than I've had a very positive experience, and I love it. Other people, might have, different pros and cons. So if you're available, it should be pretty interesting. If not, we're gonna record it and put it online too. So it'll be around.
That sounds great. I will definitely, as long as I don't have class, I'll definitely make it.
I know we tried to make it in the evening, but some people have evening classes too, and so it doesn't. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Thank you so much for
Anytime.
talking with
Feel
me.
free to reach out to me too. If you want to take my email address, I do
Yeah.
recruiting for this area, and I'm just happy to talk about stuff. But it's Marcus, Marcus .j.leach, Leach, at navy.mil.
Navy.mil. Perfect. Thank you so much.
No, anytime.
All right. Well, I think that's it. I have the details on the presentation for next week. So, Melissa, I can email those directly to you so you don't have to go searching for them. Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Hey, anytime. And hopefully COVID will get over and I can actually get out there in person next time.
Exactly.
I was there last January for a career fair, and that was great.
Oh
That
yeah, and this is what we normally host in person in January, and this is kind of our alternative to it. It's just trying to get as many people. It's like 4 weeks long. It's a lot more complicated and complex than just that one day event.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, this is our COVID answer to that, and hopefully next January we'll be back on and able to host these in person again.
Absolutely.
All right.
We'll be here for you.
Yep. Thanks. Have a good weekend.
You too. Thanks a lot.
Right. Bye.